Let's talk Boeing. Big story over the weekend. Boeing hosting its annual meeting today in Chicago. In the wake of all of that, the gathering coming after this news report over the weekend from the Wall Street Journal finding that Boeing did not tell its largest customer, Southwest Airlines, and other carriers that a safety feature designed to alert pilots about malfunctioning sensors had been switched off. Now, Southwest says it did not know about that change until after the fatal Lion Air crash. Joining us right now by phone from Los Angeles is the author of that report, Andy Pasztor. He's a senior special writer for the Wall Street Journal, and we thank you for joining us and waking up early to talk to us. Andy, explain to us
Good to be with you.
How this happened. You know, we were talking in the last hour about what Southwest knew, what it didn't know, and also this idea that perhaps this was all an effort by Boeing to effectively charge its customers more. But if Southwest didn't know about this to begin with, how were they trying to upsell them on the sensor product?
Well, I think it's really not so much a question of Boeing trying to charge extra. It's a question of the speed and the confusion, and I would say to some extent the bullheadedness of Boeing in pushing ahead with its plan. 6 months after the start of this crisis for the company, the first crash in Indonesia, the fact that we're still talking about what it told airlines, particularly its biggest 737 MAX customer, but other airlines, what they knew, what they were told, that we're still discussing that is, I think, pretty telling about the situation for the company and really for the industry. The issue here is that Boeing basically decided that these sensors were not important. Many airlines also decided that they were not important, but they weren't explicitly told, they weren't discussed, this issue wasn't discussed, and so there's a lot of confusion about exactly how this occurred. What is clear, though, absolutely clear, is that this shows that this issue is not going away for Boeing, and it's a really sore point.
And in terms of your reporting on this topic, how far did this go? Did this go all the way to the top? Meaning, do you believe that Dennis Muilenburg knew that Southwest did not know this, that the pilots did not have the correct manual information even in their manuals?
So let's put this into some context. It's a gigantic company, of course, with various branches and lots of products. Folks on the Hill, investigators on the Hill, and at the Transportation Department and in the Justice Department are really scrambling to find out who knew what and how far up the chain it went. I don't think it's a question of whether the chairman himself knew or made the decision. It's a question of what kind of system Boeing has in place and checks and balances to make sure that its senior engineers are aware, that its marketing people are aware, and that they have a systematic way of informing their customers about what is available on the plane.
Andy, talking about accountability, the other thing you write about are these sequences of email correspondence that take place between folks at the FAA who seem to know about this and yet didn't alert Southwest. This goes to me to this whole argument that the FAA is too close with Boeing. I mean, that's part of the critique right now.
Well, that's right. And the FAA does have some responsibility, obviously, for approving the system and then for how it reacted after the initial crash. There are some indications that mid-level people inside the FAA who monitor Southwest became concerned about the issue of these sensors and generally what the available system on the plane did, and they discussed it among themselves. We haven't found any signs that it went up to headquarters at the FAA or senior officials, but there was concern, and it really wasn't followed up by those middle-level folks in a very serious way. The other thing that we should just keep in mind is that Boeing's problem is obviously the design and the accidents, but also its response to this whole issue. And they vacillated between being hard-nosed and saying there's absolutely no problem, we didn't do anything wrong, which is what the chairman did last week, and then some other times when they've been saying basically they apologize and they're ready to take responsibility and try to move forward.
What kind of liability do you think Boeing may have when it comes to Southwest? What does it mean to the relationship that Boeing has with these airlines as a result of this?
For Southwest, they're pretty committed to Boeing, and it's hard to see how this has a major, significant long-term impact. But for regulators around the world and for other carriers who may not be so committed, the question of restoring trust is a major question mark. And I think at this point, for your listeners, the major point is the technical issues, I think, have been largely resolved. Boeing and the FAA and the regulators overseas know basically what needs to be done to make this a safer plane and to make the system less dangerous or not dangerous at all. But how to sell that to passengers, airlines, and so on,
right.
That's really the challenge for them at this point.
Andy, we want to thank you. We got to run. If we have the same conversation a year from now, do you believe that the current leadership of Boeing will be the same?
I don't know. It's not for me to predict, but there's certainly a lot of people who are saying that there should be some changes at the top. I would say folks who are saying both at the top of the FAA and at the top of Boeing.